Hello, hi there, I am Thekla Petridou and this is our YouTube channel, Psychology and Life. Today I have a letter, an email to answer to. The email is from a 39-year-old young man who is wondering whether his any unhealed childhood trauma might affect his adult daily life without him realizing it. Let's go through his email together, read it, and try to answer. Hi there, I'm a 39-year-old man that just stumbled upon your channel in English. To be honest, my Greek origin girlfriend, it's not easy to stumble on my channel because it's in its very beginning, and I don't think that YouTube algorithm proposes my channel much, my English channel much. To be honest, my Greek origin girlfriend sent me a link to your channel. I thank your Greek origin girlfriend for doing that. She's watching your videos in Greek and claims that they helped her to understand herself and make wiser choices in life. She's on therapy for a while now. She told me that your videos in Greek helped her realize that she suffered from Cptsd, complex post-traumatic stress disorder. This is what Cptsd means. And that her childhood trauma was affecting her adult life. I met her only 6 months ago, so I don't have a clear picture of how positively you affected her, but she swears by your videos. Anyway, my issue is that I think that I had a somewhat normal childhood, nothing fancy, nothing too traumatic. A normal childhood. I'm the oldest of 2 male siblings and our father used to work in police force, so he wasn't much of an emotional man. I mean, I know he loved us, but he never said so. So your father never showed you his affection with words. Let's see if he showed his affection and his emotions with actions. I mean, I know he loved us, but he never said so. And yes, sometimes he hit us. Hitting a child, corporal punishment, is an action that shows quite the opposite of love. It cannot be loving to hit a child. Of course, there are other cases that parents or fathers hit their children and then they say to them that I hit you because I love you, which is even more distressing and even more confusing than the father just hitting you and not saying that he loves you on top of that. But all fathers back then hit their children. Most fathers back then hit their children, and if something is done by many people, this doesn't make it right. Of course, I'm a psychologist, and psychologists tend to have a critical point of view on people's behavior. I am like 10 years older than you, so my parents were of a previous generation than your parents, and you being brought up in Australia. This is not the actual email. I transferred his writing on a Word document so that I do not disclose his personal information. He told me that he was brought up in Australia. You being brought up in Australia and me being brought up in Cyprus, Greece, it's not the same society. But it is true that something that was widely used and widely accepted, corporal punishment for younger children from their parents, now it is examined from the science of psychology as traumatic experience, and that the parents who hit their children cause them emotional trauma, psychological trauma, and deep emotional wound. So even though your childhood was normal, if you compare it to other people's childhood, normal in our daily language is like it happens. This is what we usually see. Your normal childhood was traumatic, and I know that it was traumatic because you write to me already that your father did not express his love to you and that he hid you. You say that you don't think that your father was an exception of the rule. Let's see what happened with your mother. On the other hand, my mother was very emotional. Too emotional, I might say. I often witnessed her crying and going through depression. She is currently on antidepressant medication and she stopped crying. So she was crying a lot, huh? This is a very vivid image in your mind that your mother was crying and now she stopped crying. But never do I remember her being happy and joyous when growing up. So your mother was a depressed mother. And there is a lot of research, old research, since I was first enrolled at the university in the early 90s, that the children of depressed mothers get emotionally affected. It is traumatizing for a child to be brought up by a depressed mother, a mother who is depressed without doing this on purpose. She neglects her children emotionally. She is currently on antidepressant medication and she stopped crying, but never do I remember her being happy and joyous when growing up. But overall, she's a good mother, supportive and caring. My younger brother has a family now and she takes care of my niece and nephew with great pleasure. She seems happy now. I don't know. So you portrayed your family as a somewhat normal family, your family dynamics when growing up, but you mentioned yourself some issues that might lead to the conclusion that you had a traumatic childhood. A father who is not expressive, who never said, I love you. A father that used corporal punishment, who hit you. A mother who was crying all the time and was depressed and not happy and not joyous, but not hitting you, not being a bad mother. You cannot be an ideal parent. You don't have a perfect parent. You can only have a good enough parent. A good enough parent is not someone who only does not do any harm, does not cause any harm intentionally on their children. A good enough parent, a good enough mother in this example, is someone who tries her best not to hurt their children, and someone who tries her best to overcome her emotional difficulties, to get therapy for her depression, in order to be emotionally present for her children and show emotion towards her children. Because you said your mother was very emotional, too emotional, but the emotions she showed were those of depression. And this can be utterly traumatic to a child, being brought up by a mother who is depressed and crying. Let's see how this affected you now. About me, my girlfriend claims that sometimes I get distracted and pay no attention to what she's telling me. I don't think that this is much of a problem, but she insists that I should investigate it. The truth is that sometimes, especially when she talks about issues I do not like to talk about, let's see what you don't like to talk about, like feelings and expressing our feelings, etc. It's as if I do get distracted and I catch myself like watching her talking from a distance, as if she's not talking to me but to someone else. She claims that I detach. I too also claim that you detach. I do not do it on purpose, it just happens. Emotional detachment is a coping mechanism that when a person cannot endure the pain, the emotional pain that is inflicted on them because of a vulnerable topic conversation, they detach themselves emotionally. They try not to listen, not to fully integrate what the other person is telling them. And they don't do it on purpose. Of course, you don't do it on purpose. I believe you that you don't do it on purpose. Emotional detachment is a coping mechanism and it is manifested automatically by our autonomous nervous system. I'm also prone to anxiety and sometimes my mood is not the best. But my job is very demanding And it's only normal to be anxious, isn't it? I don't know what job you do. You say that you have a demanding job, and demanding job causes stress. It takes a person prone to anxiety to take that stress and develop anxiety. Anxiety is very much linked to bad mood or depression. It seems that anxiety and anger outbursts might be connected with the onset of depression. It might not, but not all people are prone to anxiety, and having complex post-traumatic stress disorder, you can be anxious more often, and I will explain this clearly later, how Cptsd and emotional dysregulation is connected to anxiety. Anyway, my girlfriend suggests that I suffer from unresolved childhood trauma and I should seek therapy. What do you think? Maybe she's overreacting? Or she thinks that everybody is affected the way she is? What's your take on that? Anyway, I don't know if your girlfriend is overreacting, but from what you wrote, it's obvious to me, being a therapist, that you also carry childhood trauma like normal people do. Since you like normal childhoods and normal tendencies, it's only normal to carry childhood trauma. To be honest with you, I don't think that any parent, even if they are the best they can be, we said good enough parent, not perfect parent, even the parents that are the best they can be, are not able to raise a child without causing them any emotional trauma. Life itself causes emotional trauma. The problem with emotional trauma is not when you have it. The problem is when you don't deal with it. Because, let me explain this to you. Our psyche, our emotional world, our mind, our brain work like this. When something traumatizes you, when something is a painful experience, you have automatically responses from the autonomous nervous system. Those can be 4 responses. The 4F, as some writers and therapists, as Pete Walker describes it on his book, Overcoming Complex Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder. The 4F is fight, flight, freeze, fawn. Most of us have heard of the fight or flight response, and the most popular theories about anxiety are based on fight or flight response. An autonomous nervous system response, you either fight with the perpetrator, you either fight with your parent or someone who attacks you, or you either flight, you go away. The freeze response is the response when you are paralyzed and numb and you don't know what to do. And the fawn response is the response that a small fawn, a small deer, a young deer does when there is an attacker. They throw themselves to the ground and they act as if they are not there. They shrink themselves. They blend themselves with their surroundings so that they cannot see them and so that they are safe. Those 4F responses are very important for a young child in order to overcome the immediate trauma pain caused to them. But most of the time, people do not come afterwards, after the trauma happened, to heal their trauma, and they remain in that situation. They remain in an emergency status, whereas the emergency has passed. This is what trauma does to block our adult life. Our traumas happened in the past. They ended, they are gone. But in our brains, we still have a vivid memory of our traumas when we are still in a fight, flight, freeze, or fawn reaction towards trauma. We need therapy to resolve our traumas, to heal our traumas, so that they are no longer threatening to our existence and we stop reacting to them. What is blocking your adult life, what is causing problems in your adult life is not the trauma itself, but it's your body and you being on a defiant mode because of the trauma that you carry and you haven't healed. Once you heal your past trauma and your childhood trauma, then you are no longer threatened by it. There are many manifestations of unhealed childhood trauma in adult life. Some people find it very easily to connect with other people. Some people find themselves to avoid emotional connections and emotional attachment. Some people find themselves to have anger outbursts. Some other people find themselves to be in great difficulty to put boundaries, to set boundaries in relationship. Some people find themselves becoming codependent to other people. Codependent to narcissists. This is the most normal form, that you have one person who is traumatized and haven't healed their trauma, so they walk around being in fawn and freeze position. So when they meet someone who is also traumatized, also hasn't done any work with their trauma, and they walk around in fight or flight mode, when these two meet, the one is the perpetrator, the narcissist, the one with the narcissistic personality type, and the other is the victim, the one with the codependent personality type. I do a lot of work on my Greek YouTube channel, and it is true what your girlfriend told you. It's true that I do a lot of work. I hope it's true that I helped here, about understanding the dynamics of relationship. And the most common dynamic I encounter is the one of someone with a condependency style and someone with a narcissistic personality style. Codependent personality type, narcissistic personality type. I'm not talking about diagnosis. I'm talking about ways people get attached to each other, ways people get connected with each other. A narcissist is someone who doesn't care about other people's emotions. A narcissist is someone who fends for themselves, that their greater worry is to satisfy their needs and feel pleasure, and they don't have any empathy for others. And codependent people are the people who do not fend for themselves, are the people who feel that they are worthy of life only when they are attached to somebody else, only when in a relationship with somebody else. And codependent people usually choose narcissists to codepend to. The word codependency and the adjective codependent has come out of the work of the 12-step self-help programs, and codependency was first observed in that clinical setting, and it was observed on the family members of alcoholics and addicts. Not all codependent people are codependent to an addict or an alcoholic, but most codependent people, they form codependent relationships with narcissists. Okay. I don't know what's your personality type. You don't give me any information that would make me make a hypothesis about your personality style. But from what you write to me, it is obvious that your past is catching on you. Mood swings, sometimes your mood is not the best. Anxiety, being prone to anxiety, emotional detachment, not feeling easy to talk about feelings and expression of feelings. These information are important for me as a psychologist to form a hypothesis that you do have childhood trauma that affects you in your adult daily life. What I would recommend, you will never lose if you start therapy. Even if you don't have so much unresolved childhood trauma as your girlfriend suggests, or I make a hypothesis, even if you don't have so much unresolved childhood trauma, if you go on therapy, you are going to get help to get to know yourself better, and be in better communication with yourself and your feelings, and have a better and stronger control of your life. There are 3 ways which help a person to better their lives. The first way is therapy. The second way is psychoeducation. Psychoeducation is a procedure when someone reads psychology books, watches applied psychology videos like the videos I upload on my channel, and they try to learn more about trauma, about some psychological disorders, about therapy. And the third axe is spiritual growth and spiritual battle. Of course, I refer to the work you put on your daily life in order to understand yourself, understand your feelings, apply to your life what you have learned through psychoeducation and psychotherapy, and the daily fight to become a better person, a spiritual battle. Closing this video, I would like to say some things about complex post-traumatic stress disorder. Complex post-traumatic stress disorder is a new clinical entity. It's not yet listed on DSM-5, but it's already been listed on ICD, and it refers to people that they don't have a simple post-traumatic stress disorder, which means that after you got traumatized, then you have recurring memory flashes of the event, and you have psychological distress every time you have a memory coming back into your brain, every time you have a memory flashback. In complex post-traumatic stress disorder, the symptoms are much more perplexed, and any trigger can, and with triggers, you have emotional flashbacks, not memory flashbacks. You don't remember your actual trauma. In post-traumatic stress disorder, in PTSD, you have memory flashes of the actual trauma. In complex post-traumatic stress disorder, you have memory flashbacks of how you felt when you were first traumatized. So you find yourself detached, you find yourself suddenly sad, yourself suddenly anxious, and you get what we say emotional dysregulation. Emotional dysregulation is when with any trigger that you might not even realize that you have a trigger, your emotions get mixed and you stop feeling well. And an emotional dysregulation is the most common symptom of post-traumatic stress disorder. And anxiety might also be evaluated as emotional dysregulation. Mood swings can also be evaluated as emotional dysregulation. Detachment can also be evaluated as a sign of emotional dysregulation. If we feel emotional dysregulation, there are many techniques and many ways in order to restore our emotional balance, but this is an issue for more videos. Not this video, we need many videos to explain ways and techniques to restore emotional balance. I hope that this video was useful to you and to anybody that is interested in the subject. Let's make a summary. there is no trauma-free childhood. There are not perfect parents. There are only good enough parents. And unresolved childhood trauma can really affect our daily lives. I am Thekla Petridou. This is my YouTube channel, Psychology and Life. Have you liked my video? Please press the like button, subscribe to my channel, push the notification button for more, and share the video with your people you love. Bye.